Maybe people don't know this, or if you don't realize it, the government sucks at spending your money.
Every time I hear the word conservative from people, like, oh, my financial advisor's conservative, my accountant's conservative, I just think, no, they're ignorant.
Average productivity in a day for a normal person in an 8-hour work block is 2 hours and 53 minutes.
Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. Welcome to this show that's your show. Those of you that work so hard for your money and you're now ready for your money to start working harder for you today, not 30 or 40 years from now, but right now, so you can live that life as you love with those you love by being work optional, where you work because you want to, not because you have to. But guys, we know it's not just about getting rich, about living a rich life, because as you're blessed financially, as you prosper, you now have a greater capacity to bless the lives of those around you. And that is a ripple effect I'm here to do for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in, binging on our episodes. As much as you guys have been doing, you've been referring others to the show. Again, we always appreciate it, putting us in the top percentile of podcasts out there today in the world. That's all because of you guys helping create that ripple effect. As a reminder, guys, if you haven't done this already, be sure to subscribe to both YouTube channels, not just the Money Ripples channel, but there's the Money Ripples podcast channel as well. Be sure that you don't miss out, not just on the episodes, but also the videos that we put out daily to help you progress and be able to hit your financial freedom journey faster. Okay, guys, I'm bringing back a return guest that I don't know how many freaking times we've had John Briggs on now. Now I think about it, we've probably had him on at least minimum, I would say at least 3 to 4 times, maybe more. It's almost like an annual thing that we do. And since we've been doing this for 10 years, I'm sure you guys have, if you've been around long enough, you've binged enough, you might even seen some of his episodes. But if not, it's been almost 100 episodes ago. So it's about time we have him back, because John, now he's the owner of Incite Tax, which they're great do a great job on the tax side of things, especially if you're a business owner. You guys should definitely check them out. But also, he's like this deep-rooted passion for entrepreneurs and really helping you guys be able to increase your life, increase your productivity, so that you can actually enjoy life more, which is a big part of our show, which is getting that time freedom back. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, John, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Chris.
Yeah, man. So let's just kind of dive in. I mean, obviously, let's talk a little bit about, what you do, right? Let's just talk about that for just a bit. Just tell us more about your services and what you offer.
Yeah, so Incite Tax, we are a full service accounting firm. We do anything from bookkeeping for small business owners, cash flow management, and then tax strategy. As you were talking about it, I mean, my mind went to, you and I kind of do the same thing. We've just picked different avenues. We want to help people grow their wealth. And the way we've chosen to do that on the accounting side is help them not pay unnecessary taxes to the government, because, maybe people don't know this, or if you don't realize it, the government sucks at spending your money. So let's keep it in your pocket, and then you can use it to grow your wealth. So that's what we do on the tax side. And then I don't know if I'm considered an author now. I have 2 books, but as you said, I am passionate about helping entrepreneurs stay in business. We see too often they have this passion and it kind of can die out if they don't do the right things to stay in business, because business can be harder than we initially think before we jump into that little event. And so my last book I wrote was published in January, and it's all about productivity. How do we get more done during the workday by working less?
Well, I know that's something that a lot of people would say, I want that, right? So how do they do it? Like, how do you actually get more done during the day while working less? Like, I have my own things. I know I read The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz, and that helped me a little bit, but that's still a struggle for me even, right? So how do we do it?
Well, so really quick summary of history for us. Back in the 1800s, everyone worked 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
And then early 1900s comes along, and there's this guy selling motorized carriages. And he's like, no one wants to buy these things because they're exhausted. They're working 100 hours a week. So he's like, how do I sell more cars? So he created the weekend. People used to work Monday through Saturday, and they used to work like 15, 20-hour shifts. So he said, I'm going to give them Friday and Saturday off so they can have 2 days in a row off, which may mean they have more time to drive somewhere. And I'm also going to cap their work days at 8 hours. So
Mm.
he created the 40-hour work week. This guy I'm talking about is Henry Ford, and that was 100 years ago. But today, most people operate under the same model of I work 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever.
What a way to make a
Why?
living, right?
Well, yeah, there's zero science that supports that this is the way we should be working. We just adopted it, and no one stopped to think, is there a better way in 100 years? So with the productivity, I was looking at what we're doing in our company, and I did a bunch of research and looked at the science. Man, our brains, we have a natural tendency that our brains cycle from focus to distractibility, back to focus, back to distractibility. And we also found things like average productivity in a day for a normal person in an 8 hour work block is 2 hours and 53 minutes. They actually do work for 2 hours and 53 minutes. That's it.
Wow.
And why? Because, I mean, you can think about it sometimes, depending on what we have going on, or if I'm working for someone, I'm sitting down at 9 o'clock and it's like, oh, I guess I'm here till 5. You know,
Hmm.
so like we just have a tendency to then take things. I have a lot of time to get stuff done. So what we need to do is take shorter work blocks. And I can go into some of the more of the science of it, but we get more done by intentionally taking breaks.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So when you say intentionally taking breaks, like how much of a focus do people usually have? Like I know in college, it seemed like if I went beyond the 45-minute mark, then I was starting to lose focus in class. I mean, it's something like that, or is it more? Is it less?
Yeah, it actually depends because we're all wired differently. You know,
Hmm.
like you love running. I'm
Yeah.
not that big of a fan. I'm not wired to love long distance running. So we do have to look at it individually, but that's why I loved the science that I found
Hmm.
because it supports a principle approach so that each of us individually can apply the principle. And so with all the science, I called it the 3.3 rule. And what it says is that the most efficient workday consists of working up to 3 hours at a time,
Hmm.
followed by a 30% recovery period. So in your case, in the example of like, if
Wow.
I'm losing focus after 45 minutes, I'm probably going to take a 10-minute break after that 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to come back. And because I take that 10-minute break, science supports that my brain, as long as it's a proper break, we can get into that too. My brain resets and it can come back as equally focused on the next set of focus time that I want to work on. But you know, there's other people, they have like you, if you give me numbers and say, hey, can you do some forecasting for this company? I love that stuff. I'll mess
Mhm.
with an Excel file. I could do that for 3 hours straight. I love it. And I might even feel like I could go longer than 3 hours, but the science supports that after 3 hours, even if I love what I'm doing, I need to take a break.
Mhm. I've noticed that too, and I've probably been guilty of that more lately. I've getting this creative space where all of a sudden, like, I don't want to stop the flow, right? But then, if you realize, you're like, wait a minute, I've been sitting down for 3, maybe 4 hours straight, which is horrible for your body and your back, right? Like, you barely stand up. You feel like you're 80 years old when you stand up from that chair, and I realized too, I'm like, am I really doing it as effective as I could be?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And so what how do you see that tie in? I mean, that's such a far cry from taxes, isn't it? I mean, why are you personally passionate about this very topic here?
Yeah. So the book and all the research actually started because I don't love the word because it feels very Karl Marxy, which I don't agree with any of his stuff. But I started writing a manifesto to the accounting industry.
Mhm.
I wanted to put it on paper. I didn't plan to publish it or share it with anybody. It's just kind of like I'm kind of tired of what my industry is doing to human beings. And this
Mhm.
expectation that, oh, if you're an accountant, you of course you're going to work 70 to 80 hours a week. It's just what we do. That's what you're signing
Mhm.
up for. It's like, why? Why are we doing that? Why? Like, I started looking at it and I'm looking at the macroeconomics of what's happening. We have a shortage of accountants right now.
Yeah.
And we haven't, like, the data that accountants are leaving the space to jump to different industry hasn't changed. So we have the same number of people leaving, but we have fewer and fewer accountants enrolling into programs. Why?
Mm.
Because of social media and things like Glassdoor and Reddit, where people can share their experience. And now everyone knows, like, oh, I heard accountants make great money, but it looks like their life sucks. And now some of these firms can't even argue they let their accountants earn great money. So I'm writing this kind of manifesto like, you guys got to change. If we don't stop this trend, we're going to ruin our economy, because I believe small business owners need accountants. But what
Yeah.
happens when accountants aren't there? The accountants that are there are going to have to raise their prices. So now we have inflation problems. Now they
Mhm.
become too expensive. Well, they're going to find an alternative option to trained accountants, which isn't going to be as good. So maybe now small business goes out of business faster,
Okay.
and they represent something like 94% of all net new job creation. Not the Fortune
Mm.
100 companies who get all the publicity,
Yeah.
who are getting politicians scratching their backs. Not those guys. It's a small business guy. They are our US economy.
Mhm.
And so as I was writing it, that's how it came to be. And my hope is that as more accounting firms adopt the principles of the 3.3 rule, which we have done here at my accounting firm, people's work life harmony improves drastically. When they're at home, they can be at home, not just physically, but mentally as well. They don't have to worry about work, because they are following the science that supports this, and they're having enough time for personal life. But when they work, they work. Like if we're going to work,
Yeah.
let's focus on doing that. And by allowing yourself to have these breaks in between, you are like, okay, I know that I'm going to get a break, and I'm on that break, I'm going to do absolutely nothing work related. We can go into that in a what with a much more different mental focus, and we get a lot more done doing it that way.
Man, that's awesome. I mean, really, you're trying to revolutionize the entire accounting industry, is what you're trying to do, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because otherwise they're going to burn out, and like you said, makes it worse on us as business owners. Because it's not just that you're having a shortage of accountants, even worse. And I know you know this for sure, certain. There's a shortage of good accountants,
Yeah.
especially, right? And even if you find that good accountant, and you're like, oh, this is the best person, when other people find out, they all flock to that accountant. They burn out because they don't know how to scale or duplicate themselves either, right? And then the whole thing just collapses. And in fact, I just today, I mean, kind of go along with that. I'll let you answer that thing too, because I know you're all about proactive accounting and actually saving people money. But I had a woman just today on another mastermind group I'm a part of on the app. She's like, "Hey, my accountant said I couldn't write off this business mastermind membership due that I pay as part of this club." I was like, that's BS. I'm like, I'm not an accountant, but just make it dues and subscriptions. Don't even tell that accountant. And, oh, and by the way, fire that accountant because
Yeah.
they're full of crap, right? I mean, that's just so bad. Like, so even if there's a shortage, just even finding good trained accountants that even know what they're talking about is so hard to find.
Yeah, totally. And one thing, as I started sharing the message with other people, come to find out the accounting industry isn't the only one who's treating their employees really badly. Um, Apparently, attorneys, accountants, engineers,
Mm.
doctors, like it seems like we're not mutually exclusive with the accounting industry, that corporations work their team members to death. And then what I found too is small business owners do this to themselves sometimes, because
So
it's
true.
like, man, no one else is going to do this. I have to get it done. I might as well get it done now. Like you're actually hurting yourself by forcing yourself to do that too long. But yeah, from a proactive standpoint, absolutely. One of the big differences from a good accountant and a bad accountant is that they're offering you ideas and suggestions. We live in this world. The business owner doesn't.
If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now.
Now, one of the things interesting about proactiveness, and I'll just say this for all your listeners, we don't have crystal balls. So we can be proactive only when we get more information from the client.
Right.
Like that's why we're really good when we do sit down with our clients, like tell us what's going on.
Mhm.
Just maybe they may say something that's like, oh, hold on. Oh, there's a tax thing there. Let's go down that rabbit hole for a second. Like, oh, I didn't know that we could talk about, like, that's related to saving me taxes. Absolutely. So what we do from a proactive standpoint, which most firms don't, most firms it's like you see your accountant during tax season and then you can't get a hold of them until next tax season, if that. We
Yeah.
constantly are sending out information of things that we're seeing, valuable education, because our hope is our clients read it and it triggers something for them. It's like, I think I did something like that. Oh,
Hmm.
Insight's asking me to reach out to them and tell them about what I did. That's how we can be proactive, but it is a partnership relationship with our clients. It can't just be a one-way stream of communication from us. We do need info from them in order to help them with that.
Yeah. And that brings up an interesting question in my mind too, when you talk about, because obviously the client has to be proactive too. They got to take their own personal responsibility. But if they're like in a position like mine as a CEO, you start like juggling all these different balls, and it's like one more thing to add to the list. And just a few weeks ago, before we recorded this show, right, we brought on a guest where he does a fractional CFO service, because most of us, getting a full time CFO may be overkill, right?
A
But
little overkill,
fractional
pretty
CFO,
expensive. Yeah,
yeah, but fractional CFO, where they're actually saying, hey, let's get really strategic about what we're doing, make sure that the activities you're doing actually makes you money. But even the fact that they're making you do as in-depth reporting as they do, does that help you as well on the accounting side?
100%. The cleaner the data is, the better. Having other eyes or mentors in that person's business saying things to them,
Yeah.
all those things help trigger like what's going on. Because what happens is, like you mentioned, the bad accountants they're kind of just of the no, you can't do that.
Uh-huh.
We train our team to be more of the idea of, okay, I see what you're saying. And in the back of my head, I'm familiar with the tax rules. How can we make this work? So then it
Yeah.
becomes a conversation of maybe instead of buying the rental property this way, we buy
Hmm.
it this way. And that gives us a better tax benefit. So it's kind of a matter of instead of immediately saying, absolutely no, you can't do that, which most lazy accountants do,
Hmm.
we at least like, let's entertain the idea. How could we make this work? Worst case scenario, we go through the whole process and it's like, yeah, sorry, the tax rules are pretty clear on that one. We're not going to get a good benefit out of it. But a lot of times we can find something.
Yeah,
And, that something usually results in real money saved for the client.
for sure. Well, what's your opinion when you hear someone say, I have a conservative accountant? I use air quotes with that conservative accountant,
Yeah.
right? What's your response to that?
Yeah. It's so interesting. Conservative is such a hot word these days with political stuff, right? Because you're either a conservative or you're liberal, seems like these days. I hate that reference because in my mind, it's like at the end of the day, my understanding, like if someone asked me and they talk to me and I share with them some of their tax things, depending on who they are, where they're coming from, they're going to be like, this guy is ultra aggressive, right? So now
Hmm.
I'm on the opposite side of this conservative thing. It's like you, with your lack of knowledge, may perceive me as aggressive, but I mean, the government can take away my ability to prepare taxes. They can literally say, nope, can't do it. And I can tell you guys, my wife would be pretty pissed at me if that happened. So I can't break the law. I can only do things that I believe we are allowed to do. And I just take the approach that, like, here's the law, here's my interpretation of it. I feel like I can back this up if I have to talk to an IRS auditor about it. So I'm going to take this position because it benefits my client. We, if you underpay taxes and don't claim all your expenses, no one is ever going to come to you and say, like, hey, I think we owe you some money. I think you
Uh-huh.
overpaid in some taxes. Right. So we're always worried about the opposite end. But yeah, if someone says my accountant's conservative, if
Hmm.
most of those people, I'm guessing, are not in the accounting industry. So if someone outside of the industry thinks they're conservative, someone like me is going to feel like they're doing you a disservice. And they probably shouldn't be in the space at all because they're not doing any good other than making you feel like they work for the government and not for you.
Amen to that. Every time I hear the word conservative from people, like, oh, my financial advisor's conservative, my accountant's conservative, I just think, no, they're ignorant. They don't even know where the line is. And granted, there are some gray areas that in accounting, of course, depending on the IRS and how they interpret things. But for the most part, it's usually because they're ignorant, not because they're conservative, right? They just like, I
Yeah.
don't even know where the line is. So I'm just going to stay a mile away from the line because that's where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. I would add lazy as well. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
years ago, I had a client and she went to the same church with her accountant. He's just such a
Mhm.
nice guy. He's so nice. And I reviewed her return, and she was making good enough money. And for her, she had been filing on a Schedule C. She had some business activity, filed all that on her personal return, which is on Schedule C. And that cost her $10,000 per year in unnecessary
Wow.
taxes just by taking her Schedule C and making an election to have it taxed like an S corporation, to be a separate
Mhm.
entity. That one move alone, nothing else would have changed for her other than having one additional tax return, would have saved her $10,000 a year. And she had been using the same guy from her church for a decade.
Oof.
Talking about $100,000. What could you do with that person with helping them create passive income with an extra $10,000 per year on one simple thing? And
Yeah,
still, she like, because the guy's like, well, I just don't want to do S corps. So he never brought it up as an option.
that's horrible. Sadly, we see that all the time, don't we?
All the time.
All the time. Well, man, before I ask you my last question for you here, if someone wants to get your book, the 3.3 rule, right? Like if they want to get that book, where would they find it? What's the best way to follow you?
Yeah. So Amazon is the best place to buy it. You can also check out our website, 33rulebook.com. Our tax firm is incitetax.com. And the Incite Tax is our handle on all the things. So we have a YouTube channel, Facebook, all those things. But worst case scenario, you know how to get a hold of me too. So they can always
That's right.
ask you and you can introduce us.
And we'll be sure to put the link in the show notes because I know like Insight is spelled Incite, not
That's right.
Sight, right? It's Cite. So yeah, we'll definitely put that in the show notes as well as the Amazon link for the book because yeah, that's awesome. Sounds great. I mean, really what I hear you saying is you're trying to help people with a little bit with the offense, and be able to be more productive, right? And buy time freedom, but also the defense too on the tax side as well
That's
to make
right.
sure like how do I keep more of my money so I can keep more of my time and I keep my money too at the same time.
Yeah. Both. Let's focus on both. Both are good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You don't
Let's
have to
make
have
more
one or the
money
other.
and keep more of it.
Exactly. Well, last question for you. What do you feel that your ripple effect is in this world? Like, what do you feel like you're here to leave on this planet?
I think about the different business owners who I've interacted with over the years.
Hmm.
And I also think about our economy and the small business owner. Like I mentioned, studies or statistics support that most of the economy is on the small guy. Like it's on the back of the small guy.
Yeah.
But that's still a very, 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 very small percentage of the overall population. So if someone has the courage to go into business themselves, because that's such a small percentage, we want to keep them in business. So as we help those people, whether it's saving $1,000 this year or 15,000 or $100,000 this year, I
Hmm.
know that because of who they are, the fact they had the courage to start their business, they then can take that money themselves and increase their whole like legacy, their whole community footprint, whatever they have there. There's
Yeah.
that. And then, we're up to 220-ish team members now.
Wow.
And when we surpassed the 200 milestone, my team surprised me with a really nice book. Like they even gone back to people who are no longer with us. Like some of my favorite employees decided to be stay-at-home moms after they had their kids.
Hmm.
And so they even asked them, like, what has Incite Tax meant to you? And so I can tell you, like, I've had a ripple effect on their lives, which benefits their spouses and their children, and they have more money, they have more personal time. And so I feel like that kind of ripples out as well to bless the world.
That's wonderful, man. I love it. I appreciate you being that living example of that ripple effect. I really do.
Thanks, Chris.
So, well, man, appreciate your time here today. Everybody, be sure to check out the show notes, incitetax.com. Also, look for the I was going to say 3x3. That's not it. The 3-3 rule book. Again, we'll put that link in the show notes so you guys can get a copy of that as well. But remember, you can be listening to this stuff all day long and listen to podcasts, but until you do something with this information, your life will remain the same. Be sure and make it a wonderful and prosperous week. See you later.